very proudly, Enugu is the capital of Southeast Nigeria and former capital of Eastern region, and is the home to many prominent citizens of the Southeast. Today, we'll be looking at a topic that is quite topical, given the political momentum we have, not only in the Southeast, not only in Enugu State, but in Nigeria. And so this morning, we'll be taking a close look at reappraising APC's position in Enugu State politics, and of course the chances of His Excellency, the Governor of Enugu State, Mbah, in the 2027 general elections. And so you must agree with me that this is quite a topical issue. But before I introduce my guest, let me kind of do a background. Politics in Enugu State has long been dominated by the People's Democratic Party. That is incontrovertible, which has maintained a stronghold since Nigeria's return to democratic rule in 1999. It has been absolute. However, the presence and influence of the All Progressives Congress in the state has remained relatively limited until recently, raising questions about opposition strength, party structure, and voter confidence. Since the emergence of Governor Peter Mbah under the PDP, his administration has introduced policies and development strategies aimed at transforming Enugu into a modern economic hub. While supporters point to infrastructural development and economic reforms, critics argue that challenges such as security concerns, economic pressure, and political inclusiveness still need to be addressed or needs attention. And so, as Nigeria gradually approaches the 2027 general elections, political stakeholders and citizens alike are beginning to assess performance, party strengths, and possible shifts in power behavior. Can the APC reposition itself as a formidable opposition in Enugu State? Will Governor Peter Mbah sustain enough political goodwill and performance credibility to seek re-election? And what role will internal party dynamics, grassroots mobilization, and national politics play in shaping the outcome? We have been joined this morning by a seasoned politician, not just seasoned, a man who had the honest responsibility of managing the Enugu State House of Assembly for 2 consecutive sessions. And so he's a former member of the Speaker of the Enugu State House of Assembly, and quite recently, the Secretary of the Category Committee of the APC in Enugu State. But beyond that, he sits on the council, on the governing council of the University of Nigeria, among other things. He is not a stranger to Enugu politics, not even the Southeast, and was a strong member of the Conference of Speakers during his tenure. So he comes with a strong resume. He is Right Honorable Ejinodo. Right Honorable, good morning.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for finding time to be here. There are too many questions begging for answers. Fortunately, I'll be asking the questions and you will provide the answers. Okay. October last year was a kind of a tsunami in Enugu State. Governor Peter Mbah, Governor of Enugu State, then a member of the PDP, elected on the platform of the PDP, made a tsunami crossover to the APC. With 24 members of the House of Assembly, councillors. In fact, it collapsed the PDP into the APC. Given that scenario, what actually would be a correct assessment of the APC, its strengths in Enugu State today?
Well, thank you very much. I think I must start to say that the carpet crossing of the governor from PDP to APC, first and foremost, is founded on the law. Our constitution did not have inhibitions as to the limits of an executive to go to another political party. Even the legislature that has restrictions, I believe the restrictions is still with a caveat. And that caveat is that when a political party is divided, then any legislature who is a member of that political party can carpet cross Constitution is very explicit on that. As you could recall, PDP has two executives, or rather two leadership, one managed by Wike and the other one by Seyi Makinde, governor for your state. So that alone, even for legislators, is enough for them to carpet cross. The Constitution did not place any restriction on the executive member, be it the president, governor, or chairman of a local government in terms of carpet crossing. Now, assessing the strength of the current APC in Enugu State, I think for us who were there pending when they came, we are really very joyful. We are happy that at least Enugu State will be getting what ordinarily may serve as a catchment to other APC states. There are a lot of funds and favors that are discretionary for the president to issue to any state. You look at something like ecological fund, you look at something like sovereign wealth fund, you look at even SDG. These are not something that comes statutory. It comes on the discretion of the president. And there is a presumption that those in the past and even in the present who have been accessing these funds are people who aligns themselves with the ruling party. So the current APC, I think, is getting stronger. The governor first and foremost realized that there was a faction in the old APC, and first and foremost call the two factions, on different occasions, and then merge them together, and that was symbolized in the formation of the caretaker committee, where each of the two factions were able to nominate two persons in the caretaker committee, both in the local government and in the ward, and then the old PDP were able to nominate 5, making it 9. And that has gone a long way to strengthen the party, to give people sense of belonging. Even in the present Congress that was done, we realize, because in politics, one really needs to tell yourself the truth. Even though the PDP members joined us, they appear to be majority in number. So to that extent, majority of the positions are considered to them, for those of us who are in the caretaker. Then the old APC and people from Labour that joined us had to equally get their own share in the respective wards and then that of the local government. So we look at APC in Enugu State as heading somewhere to achieve greatness. At least now, our inhibitions before now is that we don't have a governor. Now we have a governor, and we need to strengthen our base to make sure that we take our pride of place, not just in the Southeast, but in the Committee of States of the Federation.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy you mentioned that when the PDP came in, like they came in their numbers, and given the dominance of PDP in the states, it would mean naturally that they had more members than the APC. Now, critics of this, or what they call invasion of the APC by the PDP, they said that APC has been swallowed. While you talk about the process inclusion, critics say that the PDP had swallowed APC, and that was exemplified by one member of your caretaker that was on the national television talking about what he called in fact, he could by saying that the governor, Peter Mbah, cannot be trusted, that he sidelined the old APC members. And you were secretary to the caretaker committee and a prominent member of the party. Do you agree with him?
Well, I think I equally watched the program, but I could describe that as being unfortunate. And he was just a member. I'm the secretary. I think Benway was the chairman. He was not. He was very economical with the truth. I wouldn't want to use the word invasion
Well, that's what the critics say.
because when there is the constitutional allowances for anybody to operate, anybody can go to any political party he wishes. So it couldn't be invasion. It is in exercise of freedom of association and the exercise of right to join a political party of their choice. As to whether or not the old PDP swallowed APC, I think the reverse should be the case because if you watch closely, we just finished our national convention. The two most prominent positions that came to Enugu State were taken by old APC. Yes. Dr. Obiaji currently is the Southeast woman leader. She is not of PDP extraction. Ben Moye is the national deputy chairman South, literally in charge of 17 states. He is not of PDP extraction. So, if one actually should evaluate and assess it, I should think that APC took a lion's share because these two positions can even control whatever, be it state chairman, be it local government party chairman, be it ward. So the argument actually does not synchronize with reality. The reality is that APC brought in something, and then of course PDP brought in something. At the state level, because PDP was the dominant, already in power before they joined us, we tried to concede some key positions to them at the state level, local government, and ward. And that is not independent of the old members of APC contributing and even old members of Labour Party. So nobody swallowed the other. We merely blended together, tried to cohabit to build a very and strong part of our dream.
Well, that's good. The APC is now the incumbent party in Enugu State. And of course, whether we agree or not, there are still some internal disunity coming from the PDP and the APC. So, how do you think that this internal crisis could be handled going as we try to face the primaries? So that you don't say this is a PDP person, now a united APC in Enugu State. What step do you think must be taken to ensure that it's no longer a divisional thing, that the PDP, then the APC?
No, I think during the caretaker period, we tried to bridge in all those gaps. For us, there is no single crisis between the old APC and people that joined us from PDP. What you see is that when people have political ambition, there's a limit to which you can restrain the person from exercising his political rights. And some people who feel that perhaps zoning may not favor them, or perhaps that they have people who may overshadow them, maybe when ticket is given, may decide to look for political alternative. But as per crisis, I think there was a full accommodation of the old APC members. And when we had our meeting, all we've preached so far is that the APC and then, of course, the Labour Party that joined APC, that they should blend together. So there's no division and there's no intent to create one. Most of the congresses that we have done, every member, be it old PDP, be it old APC members, and even Labour Party, there's no word that we will go today that we will not see APC members executive, that of Labour, but of course the majority are PDP. But at the national level, it was dominated, well, in fact, dominated 100% by old APC. So we are commingling. You give what you have to get what you don't have, and that is what politics actually represents.
Okay, again, the naysayers, as they say, or critics of that administration would say that when he defected in 24 lawmakers and 260 councillors, that he turned Enugu State into an effectively one-party state. Do you think that Enugu State is now a one-party state?
Well, the decamping of a governor cannot constitute a one-party state. And I think what it simply means, when they talk of one-party state, people like us do not share that view. When the opposition does their work very well, of course, there couldn't be anything like one-party state. But when the opposition derailed, for instance, is it Mbah that caused the PDP to question division among themselves? Is it Mbah that caused the Labour to have two parallel executives? Even currently, the ADC that is newly formed is almost having two parallel executives. If that is applicable in Enugu State, how could that be attributed to the governor? I think the opposition must be able to do their job properly. I was in opposition pending when the governor joined.
Yeah.
And we never pilfered. We never romanced with the governor to seek any favor. We were doing our job as opposition, criticizing the government then, and then now they have joined us. We are now ruling party. So the behavioral attitude of somebody who is in opposition ought not to be the same with somebody who is in the ruling party. So I do not see what is happening as orchestrating a one-party system. Opposition is very good in a democracy, especially when the opposition is constructive. It puts the government on its toes. But unfortunately, we don't even have opposition. That's the truth. Let me restrict myself to Enugu State. We do not have opposition. Even in Nigeria, opposition are people who held onto their ideology, pursue and criticize government policy with a view of the government correcting same. But in this country, what you have is people who are opposing to belong to government, not opposing government policy. So there are two different things. That is why you see that when somebody is criticizing government, once they give him political appointments, he will renege.
Yes,
when I was playing opposition, I was offered a commission and I told the governor no. And he's leaving. He may be hearing to this program that what I'm doing, I'm not against you. We do what is proper. We're talking of somebody who is leaving, and that is the former governor.
Yeah.
So it's not about opposing to belong. It's about opposing on issues.
Yes.
And that is what opposition should represent.
On principles.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. This is actually a very strong question. It may be simple to you, but a lot of people think it's strong. Enugu voters, why should they actually trust APC in 2027? After years of APC criticizing the very governor, Mbah, and his team, who are now leading the APC. APC spent money, energy. Peter was elected. Whether it is, they conjured every manner of scandal, and they were vehement that he was not doing well. Okay, and now he's in APC, and is now leading. So why would any people trust APC? Under Mbah's leadership?
Yes, you need to get the background. Prior to Mbah's entry to APC was sharply divided. We have our group, we have one managed by the former minister. And for those of us who were in APC, we felt that the former minister did not actually, campaign even to be governor. So, and as such, the election was lost. So, criticisms, you do not criticize for the sake of criticizing. You criticize with a view to doing what is proper. Those of us in APC had commended the governor on areas he has done very well. We have equally put our reservations on areas we think that there's improvement. So criticism is not meant to destroy. It is meant to be a corrective measure. and that is why it is constructive. When it becomes destructive, then it has gone beyond the realm of criticisms. So, but above all, now everybody hopes for the best. Now we are in APC, and we believe that the governor should be trusted. Reason being that for those of us personally, I do not very much believe in political party syndrome. I more or less look at individuals that operate a political party. Because if a criminal emerges in even Jesus' party, that will not make him not to be a criminal. So, what we are looking at is that we believe that the governor has actually done well since the establishment of, since the creation of Enugu State. And indeed, no state in the southeast can one boast of having invested over 1.5 billion naira in each ward. When they talk of smart school, it is revolutionary. The value of the smart school and this equipment is about 1.1 billion naira. The type 2 hospital that is being built with the equipment is not less than 400 million naira. So that is what we call even development. And above all, it's certainly going to bridge the gap between the poor and the rich. It is this inequality that is even causing crisis. Because I remember when I was in primary school, I was attending the same primary school with with the children of our gate man. So there wasn't inequality. At a point in school, they may even perform better than I do. But now, people see people who go to public schools as indigent fellows. That gap must be bridged. We thought it was even in primary school. It has even come to secondary school. How many people go to public secondary school? Even university. So, you see that the infrastructure, I know that some schools have been onboarded. There is no smart school that is less than 80% completion now. Same with this. So this is what we are looking. We are not per se looking at party. We are looking at party is a nomenclature, or rather a vehicle through which people get to power. So we are looking at the persona and the personality of the governor and what he's doing proper and what he intends to do. That is the driving force. It is not about APC. It is not about party per se. It is about the developmental strides of the governor. Right now, there is a little bit paradigm shift in the politics of Enugu State. Before now, what you see is effort at pleasing, the stakeholders, effort at maybe sharing money, having some courtesy calls, giving people money to share. But a different kind of politics has been ensued in Enugu State for now, and that is developmental politics. So that if you're talking of what the governor is doing, one should be able to say, okay, go to a conference center and see what he's doing there. It's not far from you. You go to your own particular ward and see what the structure or edifice of not less than 640 million naira in every ward, 26 of them. Same with the type 2 hospital. These are practical issues. It's not about criticism. One should be able to say, is this not primary school in my ward? Is this health center not being built in my ward? These are areas people should be talking about. But as per the intention and the implementation of course, what the governor has done, it is top notch and it is unarguably the best that can secure the future of our own children. We can't keep on creating this disparity. It will lead us nowhere.
Yes, while you express this optimism about what infrastructure the governor has put in place, which of course even the blind may see, and your comparison about, well, what we call welfareism and infrastructure governance, many argue that it's only those who are alive that go to that school they are talking about. Only those who are alive will go to international conference and buy. And then they argue that no government in Enugu state has overtaxed its citizens as the present government. And so women who are petty traders were being forced to pay. And even when the time you were a speaker, that didn't happen. But of course, just a couple of days ago, the governor seemed to have announced that they had abolished what people now call the notions 200 naira or 300 naira market daily collection. Now, many say it was just a political gimmick that is meant just to whip up, maybe to have a soft landing for 2027. You've traveled widely and it's got that taxes are paid. How do you balance this with what people are saying in the state?
Yeah, thank you. I think we need to revert ourselves back to the law. Tax, as a matter of fact, is in the exclusive list. They have several types of taxes. They have company income tax is being controlled by CETA Act 2004. We have personal income tax law Act, which is controlled by what they call Peter Act. It is all these laws are federation. We have the withholding tax, we have the VAT, we have educational gain tax, we have capital gain tax. All these things are federal laws. So what you see in Enugu State is not really about taxing. What you see is that there was an expansion of the tax net. People who were hitherto not paying tax were dragged into the tax net. And then that is not independent of people who collect revenue illegally. And of course, we naturally attribute it to government. I'm not a government spokesman, but I tell you because I have a company in Enugu, my law firm is in Enugu, my law firm is equally in Abuja. So I'm equally a victim. So I've seen some illegal collections being imposed. And I think when the House of Assembly tried to harmonize the taxes, what they harped on mainly is on the illegal tax collections, which of course there's a tax force following it. Because before now, don't forget, you will be in your shop, somebody will come for business premises, the other person will come for one other thing. They can even be up to 5. But all these things have been harmonized. And if this has been done in the past, I don't think we will have a lot of. Even if you go to parks, people resist using e-ticketing to enter because they prefer, handouts so that they couldn't even account. But we're happy with the recent development of trying to give succor to petty traders, not to collect any money from them on a daily basis. And I'm aware that I think 2 people have been arrested because of violating these directives. And I believe that if there is a special task force that will mandate itself to restricting to what the law is said. For instance, I live in Zoo Estate. Before now, about 4-5 years ago, we get levies from housing to pay on property tax. We get levies from internal rental revenue. But now, since the harmonization, we now get a single demand notice to pay concerning our property tax, and of course, we have a duty to pay our service charge. So the issue there is that I think the government need to enlighten the people properly. The issue of taxation has been riddled with politics in order to be skewed to create an impression that there is high taxes. Whatever you see, any of these laws, the company income tax is governed by the federation, by Company Income Tax Act. They call it CETA, Act of 2004. Same with Personal Income Tax Act. All those things you are seeing are not different from what the law says. And whenever you have a federal, of course, it supersedes that of the state. But because we are not used to taxation, We are not used to even paying taxes ordinarily. I can assure you that a lot of people, big men for that matter, they may not have even paid their personal income tax. And these are statutory issues. Ordinarily, in some climes, your children may not even go to school if you don't have a personal income tax. We only pay our taxes possibly when we want to run an election
We have something to
or
do.
when we have a contract that demands that we must pay taxes. That is when we pay taxes. So this civil responsibility, these civil obligations, I think we should be getting used to it. However, I'm particularly impressed with the rebates the governor has given, especially with respect to payments and land matters. I think they were given about 50% or something, I don't know. But that is actually a good rebate because you don't expect to own a property or even acquire a land without registering under your flow. It guarantees your title, it guarantees your legal title beyond the equitable title you ordinarily have.
Before I let you go on this, you've done a very good analysis of this, but I think you're missing a bit the mark. What the people are not talking about is not these taxes that people like you who are big men pay living in two estates. It's expected that you guys should even pay more than the man who's living in a property. The issue that's talking about is the market women. The 200 naira, a woman comes to the market, he has a 1,000 naira worth of good and he pays 200. And then the one they call the infamous taxing of the dead, whatever it is worth, whether it is 100 naira, but still the man has lost the family, is grieving, some can't even pay mortuary fees, and then the kind of small taxes were imposed. Now, just these two, the governor has graciously abolished one. And they're saying, has he been asleep this past 3 years that the money was being collected? So that's the main point, not even the taxes that all of us are paying, okay? Because, of course, you don't get good roads.
You see, government is not magician. I can assure you with the TSA in Enugu State, to the best of my knowledge and from my personal experience, any money I've had to pay was meant to pay into TSA. You generate a remit and pay same. And it does appear to me that most of the petty money being charged to petty traders, these monies, I believe, are collected by non-state actors. Because don't forget that when we talk of collection, especially on markets, the market under our constitution resides on the local government. But with the harmonization of state structure by the House of Assembly, the House of Assembly created a local government by virtue of Section 7 of the Constitution. So the concept of chairman or whatever is a product of laws being made by the House of Assembly. So the same House of Assembly has said, look, the local government cannot coordinate this collection. Let's coordinate it at the state. And that is why this governor's ban could be possible. If it were still left at the local government, then you still see that some infractions may be happening. People collecting illegal, even with this directive, some people are still collecting illegal levy. So I think what we need is to encourage the government to set up a task force and punish defaulters, because our people, deterrent is a major source of implementing whatever law. If people are not punished for any offense, the tendency of stopping same is very, very unlikely.
Yeah. Why Dr. Alexander Mbah ported from PDP to APC? One of the things he hammered, one of the things he said, one of the things he repeated was connecting to the center. And for many, it was actually a big one. So far, has that strategy of connecting to the center translated into anything tangible for the state? And if it has, what are those things? And what are the expectations in the future?
Well, the governor just entered the party, I think, by October last year, literally about 5 to 6 months. And within the first 3 months of his entry, I think we had witnessed him. You will recall that we had a minister who was relieved of his duty on grounds of certificate forgery. Alleged certificate forgery. And I can assure you that if the governor had not carpet crossed the APC, it wouldn't have been possible for the leadership of Enugu State to nominate a minister. So that alone is a big achievement, because prior to now, ministers from Enugu are being nominated from outside. It could be seen that the leadership of the state were able to nominate a minister that is currently occupying Minister for Innovation and Science and Tech. That is the advantage of connecting to the center. Like I said before, there are some discretionary advantages, funds being shared by the federal government. When we talk of ecological fund, ecological fund is not allocated per state. It is at the discretion of the president. If he sees that there is genuine need to invest money to control ecology, erosion, or whatever in your state, he approves same. It is not money that you're entitled to. Same with SDG, same with Sovereign Wealth Fund, same with a lot of, even third fund. Even third fund, these are discretionary money, because these are not money that is being allocated to states on equal basis. So these are part of where the closeness comes in. And nobody, whether we like it or not, if we had remained in opposition as we were, the truth of the matter remains that other states will be benefiting what we own collectively. If you watch the last administration, it is possible to point out any federal appointment that they facilitated, not because it is their fault, not because they cannot do it, not even because they are not friendly with the presidency, no, but because they weren't the requisite trust to allow them nominate heads of parastatal, heads of ministries, and sensitive government positions. That's exactly what we're saying.
Okay. A journalist from Abuja State, which say a governor is given to making very, sometimes he calls it unachievable targets. I say, why? He said he promised to invest 2 million votes to Tinubu in 2027. I said, given the statistics that we have over the years about voter turnout, where do you think that Governor Mbah is going to harvest 2 million votes? And do you think that that promise is realistic?
Well, when you are campaigning, or when you're making certain political targets, you certainly have to set your target up the sky, so that when you're falling, at least you can fall on the tree. If you set your target, on top of the tree, it's very likely that you may fall on the ground, or even on the ground itself. What we are interested, we are not interested to winning all the votes 100%. We're interested in getting minimum of at least 60-70%, because we are very conscious that all other people who are equally contesting have their relatives, have their friends. As it relates to the governor of Enugu, beyond even achievement, we believe that I think the governor has done well in terms of the plethora of achievements so far. If you watch out, the higher global business limited are now manufacturing phone, tablets. The Sunrise Flour Mill has come back to life. The Niger gas, and a whole lot of things. So beyond even performance, which nobody can doubt, you can accuse the governor of any other thing, but in terms of performance, the Enugu metropolis, of course, the 800 roads have been completed. They are now in the process of awarding about 1,021 roads further. Nobody can doubt that. And beyond even the achievements, I do not think we follow the politics of this state right from school. It is very, very unlikely, and I have to be quoted, it is very, very unlikely that those of us who are not from Enugu East Senatorial Zone would like to have a governor or have Enugu East rule Enugu State for 12 years. That's the truth. So, it is in the best interest of the state, with the performance of the governor, to allow the governor a second term so that it will possibly go to Enugu West Senatorial Zone. I do not see anybody from Enugu West who will be happy to see a governor who is supposed to stay 8 years and somebody under the guise of let me do overthrow and then you come and stay. Because once a new governor is elected, you cannot stop the person from going for second term because the constitution guarantees him so. And we are very conscious of that. The rotation in Enugu, of course, must remain sacrosanct. The 8-year tenure must remain sacrosanct. Nobody can come from behind and bamboozle the other zones. Certainly, we are not going to allow that. So we want to urge our brothers and our friends, of course, from Enugu Senatorial Zone, while we acknowledge their rights to contest, but I doubt if the other two senatorial zones of Enugu North and Enugu West will be comfortable to have the governor remain in Enugu East for 12 years. I doubt if that is going to be possible. So, since the governor has performed very well, I think we should allow him do his remaining 4-year tenure, and then, of course, we will shift to other zones. That is the feeling of the people in the streets.
Okay, I don't know if they play beside. We did the first part to get that, but that's by the way. There is this palpable fear by the old APC members, given what they saw during the state congress, and what PDP produced, all virtually 90% of their story, if not all. So there's this fear that they may not be given fair consideration for 2027 legislative tickets in the Enugu state, given what they call this new member take precedence.
You know, you will keep repeating the question and I will keep answering the same thing. Nobody is marginalized. You see, what we try to do is to create a comparative advantage on what anybody can do. We are rogated to that person. The present PDP had an edge in the state local government award congresses. Why? Because they have comparative advantage. They were more on the ground. That's the truth. More than the APC, those that joined, those they joined in APC. At the same time, those that joined from Labour Party. That was why we tried to give some positions, majority of the positions to them at the state level, and then some to APC members, even at the state level. Same with local government and ward. Then when it came to national level, that is the Southeast Zonal Congress, and then of course the National Convention, we felt that those who were in APC had a better comparative advantage. If you watch out, not just that Ben Moyo won, the person he contested with was of old APC extraction. Nobody from PDP contested that alone. So we looked at those who have comparative advantage and then situated it in that form. And then, but the most important thing is that the preaching is that both old Labour Party, old APC, old PDP should blend so that we can form a virile and a strong party that can lead us somewhere.
Okay, this question is a little bit more personal. Enugu North Senatorial Zone is currently, well, it's vacant, but before then it was under the grip of the Labour Party. And many still believe that the Labour Party has, even though we don't at least have some presence in the Enugu Senatorial Zone. So what is the strategy you think APC will adopt in ensuring that they take Enugu North Senatorial Zone? And more personally, you say you want to run for Senate. Is that correct?
Well, let me start from the first question. The the issue of Senate or even elected position depends first and foremost on the kind of person that is being nominated by the party. Because there is a vacancy in Enugu, there's a vacancy in Enugu North as a matter of fact, and we hope that the party will throw up credible candidates. The party has a role to deliver somebody they nominated, but the personality of the person being nominated equally is a very big issue. So we are looking at the party having a free and fair primaries, and of course whoever that emerges goes on. Then as per interest in running for Senate, I couldn't remember telling anybody that I'm running for Senate.
But they like to speculate.
And I think I'm bold enough to say that I'm interested in a position. And I'm yet to see anybody who has declared even in APC as to say that this person has declared or has not declared. But for us, I'm a party man. It does not mean that I cannot go for Senate. I'm not ruling that out. Whoever the party brings out, of course, I will join and follow. It's not a personal thing. I am not a political jobber. I'm a professional. At least I left office for the past 11 years to have my job. And we had consistently preached that people should not see politics as a job. It's one of the problems that had created desperation or do or die affair in the political scene. Yes, it is nice for people to be a councillor, from there to local government chairman, House of Assembly, House of Reps, even to president. Fine. But peradventure, you run out of luck or you run for an election without winning, you must have a job doing. Politics, as a matter of fact, should be seen as an ad hoc job or even a hobby. So when somebody says that his job is politics, I mean, I couldn't actually fathom it. Nobody's job should be politics. Politics is a call for service. Even if you volunteer yourself for that service and the people say no, then you go back to your primary job. People should not look at politics as a job, and it can never be a job. And that is why we've advocated that the remuneration for public office holders should be reduced drastically so that political office should be less attractive. The moment you make it less attractive, then very few people may not even be interested in contesting.
For the past 45 minutes or so, Right Honorable E.J. Nodo, you've been a little bit lavish with your praise on the performance of the governor of Enugu State. And you pointed out to several areas of intervention that are quite novel, unique, and that is based on performance. In fact, he should be guaranteed a second term. Fair and fine. The biggest room in the world is room for improvement. So where do you think the government needs improvement?
Yes, I think the government needs to improve on its communication strategy. I do not see the handlers of a dissemination of information of government representing exactly what is being done. In most cases, because I'm aware that there are a lot of people appointed to do series of jobs, especially on information dissemination. Not only that they do not highlight government policies, but the manner in which it was done, it must be a civil engagement. You get people convinced. When people criticize a government, it does not actually mean that the people hate that government. They may come by approach of knowing what is happening. So it is for government handlers to engage and explain to people word for word what exactly government is doing. As I talk to you, a lot of people may not even know that over 7,000 houses are being sprung up in the new Enugu. 7,000 buildings under construction. Very few people knew of that. Very few people knew that like the question you ask about government not dwelling on welfareism, but of course that it is supposed to be people that will be carrying the road. Only the smart school alone, the indirect job there is more than the entire civil service in Enugu State. The money got it from the indirect job. People are meant to do the ceiling, people are meant to know the block, people are meant to do the electricals, all the indirect job. And most importantly, this job were given to local contractors. So that is the only way the GDP can be increased. GDP cannot increase by mere receiving of salary. That is not how, or giving people handouts. If you go to a conference center, all the indirect jobs there are people from Enugu State and equally residents. But people are looking at empowerment from the angle of dashing money. They are looking at empowerment from the angle of employing people. As a matter of fact, government is the least employer of labor. The employer, any country that has grown economically are being propelled by SMEs. And that's exactly what you're seeing. People who are working in presidential hotel, these are the people who form what constitutes almost 80% of increasing our GDP. So when you hear that GDP is going to be increased from 4 billion to 30 billion, no, it's not about paying people money. Although if you go to every village, like in Ibeti, where I come from, we have about 20 smart schools. I know a lot of people who have built houses, people who are regarded as renegades, who have built houses because they are supplying blocks, people who have built houses because they are supplying cement, people who have even bought cars because they did ceiling and even ordinary piping. That is how economy grows. The economy do not grow by government assembly people in government house and giving them money. By the way, who is that person who will be happy to be fed by handouts given by a fellow man? I do not pray for such.
Okay, I want you to. You said a lot of things about the governor, but I want you to uh, put them in a capsule, and that relates to his chances of getting re-elected. What are those issues? What are those substances? What are those concrete deliverables that you think makes 2027 outlook for Peter Mbah very bright?
Yes, if you look at, I've talked about smart school. If you go to your village, you see an edifice of about 640 million naira. With the equipment, we'll be getting to about 1.1 billion. I believe that alone is enough to show that there is a government presence. If you go to your ward, you see type 2 hospital being sprung up, that alone will let you know that something is happening. Those of us from Enugu North Senatorial Zone, we are lucky that at least there's a dualization of Nikele to Opi. That road is very sensitive for our people and is currently ongoing. Those of them from Kano East, there is equally a dualization from Ogo, the Hamufu, to Obolafu. Of course, we need not mention what we have said before about Presidential Hotel, Conference Center, the Higher Global Limited, Sunrise, Niger Gas, and the rest. So, what we are saying is that politics or no politics, people are elected to deliver dividends of democracy to the people. For me, I've never come across anybody that is in doubt as to whether or not the government has worked. No. I've come across people who have said that taxes have been increased, just like you asked. And then, of course, I was able to let you know what mechanism that controls taxing, a tax regime in the country. So it is our hope that with the next election, the Enugu State people are tired of selected few people holding in trust for others without getting back to them. So the government is actually looking at the grassroots direct. But of course, when people have suffered some deprivations, it becomes very difficult for them to even appreciate reality. Right now, even the smart school is being equipped by computer gadgets. There's going to be a solar. to make sure that for the first time, people receive internet as low as promised. When we wrote JAM, we used HB pencil to write JAM.
I did too.
And I can assure you that anybody going to JAM, write JAM now with HB pencil, will be viewed with a different eye. So we hope that the Enugu State people, I think, should give the governor a second chance. We equally hope that people who are going to be nominated in supplementary elections like House of Assembly, House of Reps and Senate in APC, that the party should be able to nominate credible people that can make the party sail easily. Because Enugu State is becoming sophisticated in politics. The emphasis on party is no longer in vogue, even in Enugu State. People are looking at the individual persona, what they represent, who are they. If it were people like us who have held political office in the past, somebody should know who was Eugene Odo when he was a speaker, how did he behave. These are political antecedents people look at, because in political recruitment, there must be efforts in digging people's past for you to project somebody in politics, because you're surrendering your sovereignty for 2 years or 4 years to an individual. Such a thing needs a closer look for you to arrive at such a decision. So we urge the people of Enugu State to look down and see the efforts of the governor, and then, as much as possible, already they are giving their support. Because what we are looking at is the future of Enugu State. What happens even after 2023? Is the governor who is going to emerge, can he sustain what is currently being done? These are areas, because it's not even about, you know, erecting edifices or doing what I've enlisted. Part of the challenges of even the governor himself is to make sure that all this infrastructure he's establishing on the ground are being sustained. Otherwise, it will evaporate, because a success without a successor may likely not seem properly well with the people. And of course, even to sustain what you have labored for.
Okay, on a more personal note again, you have been appointed a member of the governing council of the University of Nigeria in Nsukka. And in 65 years of his existence at the university, a brother of yours is the vice chancellor. So there's a vice chancellor of Nsukka extraction, and there's a member of the governing council of the university in your person. So how far has this combination been able to translate into some tangible result for your senatorial zone?
Well, the University of Nigeria is not actually a senatorial zone issue. The University of Nigeria.
So how would the appointments translated?
No, that's not coming. We must appreciate that the university is not meant for Nsukka people. What the Nsukka people yearned for was that they felt that a university that has existed for 65 years and they have qualified people who could be VC, that it is proper that at least, even if it is for one regime, that they be given a slot. And the current VC, I think, is doing very well. He has orchestrated an infrastructural turnaround in the university using equally a local contractor, Ferrotex Nigeria Limited. If you are familiar with the University of Nigeria prior to his entry, and now that he has assumed office, you see that most of the internal roads of the university are being renovated, and accreditations that were lost in the medical and dental services we have regained, and of course things are following its shape. Our people before now used to pay as much as 2 to 3 million naira to get admission, especially if you're looking for professional courses. I do not hear of any such in the recent admissions. People who merited admissions were given admissions. However, some people were given concessional admissions, but nobody collected money. And this thing is not peculiar just to Enugu North Senatorial Zone, it's peculiar to the entire Enugu State, the entire Southeast. The university, yes, is headed by an Nsukaman, but it is not a university per se that is meant to favor Nsuka people. It is meant to favor every part of Nigeria and Enugu State in particular.
Okay, our last and final question for you, right on the bridge, is I'll put maybe a double-barrel question, but it will. What would be your advice to political parties preparing for an election? What are the things they must do? It's not just enough shouting and talking. How organized should they be? What I think they should do? And then finally, what is your advice to your party, the APC, on how to engage properly the youth in view of the propaganda of the youth in the obedient movement?
Yes, first and foremost, my advice to political parties in general, politics should be conducted in a very civil manner. People should criticize constructively instead of destructively. There should be engagement. Yes, we might not agree on ideological issues, but the central focus must be Enugu State. That is why past US presidents, those who lost the election and even those who won, they will always tell you America first. So we should imbibe this culture of Enugu State first, irrespective of our political leading. So once we play politics without bitterness, without thuggery, without blackmail, without even cyberbullying, because what is happening now, especially what you see on social media, what trend more social media is, to what extent can somebody manufacture lies against one another? That is what is in vogue now. So I think our youths should be able to get a sense refrained, because all these things has some legal implications. The Cyberbullying Act of 2025 is very, very much alive, and day by day, a lot of people have been flouting, and it's a criminal offense. For now, it's not been domesticated even in the states. The only court that has power to handle same is the Federal High Court. But people have been flouting it in a bid to bring the estimation of a fellow human being, lower than what it's supposed to be, or to ridicule the person. Then remind me of the second question.
No, I think we're taking the two. One is advice to the political parties, and then how do you think that the APC will engage the youth in view of the progress of obedient movements?
Yes, I think, like I keep on saying, when you talk of APC, we are not talking of the obedient movement is not a political party to start with.
Yeah.
These are people who found favor in our brother, Mr. Peter Obi. They share in his ideology, they share in his belief system, and that is highly respected. But at the same time, the APC, as it is currently in Enugu State, is epitomized, it is represented, and it is, you know, being viewed from the perspective of Governor Peter. In other words, those who share the same belief system, those who saw what is doing in Enugu State, especially on infrastructural development, who have seen what actually had happened in the past 2.5 years or getting to 3 years. I didn't even mention the Enugu air.
It's given.
That is a massive, not just improvement, but very lucrative income generating for Enugu State. Because when he leaves as a governor, he's not going to take it with him. It behoves on the incoming governor to get it sustained. Because an airline that ought to be under trial within 3 months, within just 6 weeks, has been certified. And very soon they may engage in intercontinental flights. So that is a credit to Enugu State in terms of even image-wise. But most importantly, the financial aspect of it is going to improve the economy of the state. So we are personally, I'm more interested in the sustenance. He's done very well, but then to what extent can this be sustained after his 80s? Then that's actually what I think that the governor needs to think deeply into, because I've seen people who have done very well as as government, and of course when they leave, most of the things could not be sustained. So that would have been a very big problem for the people of Enugu State. So while thinking of even what we are doing, then one need to think more of how it could be sustained. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Right Honorable Ginodo, for sharing your insights. And of course, what has been a very wonderful conversation this past 1 hour. We want to thank you for finding time. It's not easy. You know, we've run after you for a pretty long time. We have a busy schedule, Abuja, Enugu. So finding time to spend 1 hour, 1 hour plus with us here, we're not taking it for granted.
Thank you.
And we do hope that when we call on you next time, we find time to come. And to our viewers, of course, as I always say, the future of our democracy actually depends on informed choices and active citizen participation. We want to ask you to join us tomorrow, same time, for another interesting edition of Beyond Headlines. Have a lovely